Start from the beginning, she said quietly, concerned. I tried to make sense of my words. Elise. She's planning to take everything. My mom's assets, my memories, everything, and I, Dad, were supposed to sign. Sarah frowned. That's insane. Her eyes flicked to the folder, then back. I couldn't meet them. I shook. There's more, I whispered. Mom's letter was opened and resealed. I don't know what else is missing. Maybe pictures, maybe something important. And Dad. I don't know if he knows, or if he cares. Sarah grabbed the folder gently. We need proof. We need evidence he didn't sign these willingly. Emails, messages, bank transfers, anything. I nodded. We rifled through the pages. There was a printout of an email exchange between Elise and what looked like a lawyer, dated a week before my 16th birthday. Dad CC'd on the thread, or so it appeared, but the signature looked uncertain, blurry, as though someone else typed Dad's name. Our hearts pounding, we scanned every document. There was a mention of a living trust created under a shell company, assets to be transferred over time, with Mia Carter Minor listed as beneficiary, and Elise as trustee. The more we read, the heavier it felt, like old bricks laying across my chest. It wasn't just about keeping my mother's things, it was about seizing everything, legal guardianship, control, money, memory. We had to act. But who? Police? A lawyer? Dad himself? I shoved the papers into a backpack. I need to go home, I said. I need to ask Dad, face to face. I returned after dusk. My footsteps were silent on the walkway, lights in the house switched off. Dad's car was gone, odd for a Tuesday night. Inside, low music drifted from the living room. Elise sat on the couch, remote in hand, bathed in the bluish glow of the TV. She looked so ordinary, so domestic, I had to resist gagging. Where have you been? She asked, turning with a warm, practiced smile. I took a deep breath. My heart hurt with every beat. I know what you're doing, I said. Her smile faltered, just a flicker, gone before I could notice. She rose gracefully as though gliding. Mia, dear, come sit. Let's talk. I didn't trust it, and I didn't sit. I stood, rigid. I saw the papers. I saw the trust documents, the emails. I saw my mother's letter that you opened. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't Dad tell me? For a moment, she closed her eyes. When she opened them, her face was soft. Because it was too much. You were hurting. I wanted time to prepare you. Give you a stable home. Not throw you back into grief you can't manage. A lie. I recognized that softness from how people spoke to patients before giving them bad news. The corners of her lips tightened. It was for your own good. You lied, I said, anger rising. You erased Mom's pictures, removed her things, changed locks, decided what I could do, all under the guise of love, under the guise of helping me heal. Still calm. I've given you a home. I've given you guidance. Your father and I, we made arrangements for your future. I shook my head. You made arrangements for you to be in control. She straightened, face cold now. You're so dramatic. If it wasn't for me, your father would still be a broken shell. You would be lost. With me, you have stability. Not if it costs my truth, I whispered. Not if it costs my mom's memory. She took a step forward. You're going to hurt your father with this, put him in danger. Do you think I'll let that happen? I swallowed. Fear flickered, but anger burned hotter. I don't care about you anymore. I care about my mom. At that moment, the front door opened. My father stood there, coat in hand, confused. Mia, what's going on? I looked at him, eyes wide. Do you know about this? About everything? I lifted the folder. He frowned, pale. Elise moved toward him, placing a hand on his chest. Your daughter heard things. She's upset. His face flickered, then hardened. Mia, now's not the time. Now is always the time, I broke in. You signed documents. I'll show you the emails. I rummaged in the bag. Elise's hand tightened on his arm, but he shrugged it off. No, she's mistaken, Dad said, voice low. This is complicated. His eyes shifted to mine, fear and guilt tangled at the edges. Show him the trust, I demanded, anger sharpening each word. Show him we were nothing but a beneficiary waiting for you to approve a handover. He looked at Elise. She hesitated. Her calm veneer cracked just a little. Maybe we should talk, privately, she suggested, voice smooth. Not without me, I said, not without transparency. Suddenly, Dad dropped his coat and closed the door. Fine, he said, exhaling. Let's talk. He led us into the living room. Elise hovered near the fireplace, face serene. Dad closed the door behind us. The heater clicked on. The room glowed warm. It was too perfect, too staged. Mom's papers were part of a trust we set up, Dad began, voice steady but tight. Your mother and I, after she passed, she left instructions. She asked me to meet with Elise, her friend, under a trust arrangement. She trusted Elise to take care of both of you. My breath stuttered. She trusted her to take me away from you? I whispered. No. Dad's voice cracked slightly. Not to take you away, to protect you from people who might try to take advantage, from the financial mess I was in. He hesitated. Your mother had significant savings, investments overseas. She didn't want you dragged into inheritance battles or rumors. She asked me to talk to someone she trusted. That was Elise. His eyes shifted to her. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was weak. I couldn't face what the paperwork meant. My mind reeled. Part of me wanted to calm, to believe, but another part recoiled. Dad spoke like a man trying to absolve himself, but I could smell the lies, and Elise's silence felt loud. Why did you take everything else? Her photos, keepsakes? I asked. Elise looked at Dad. She lowered her eyes. Then she spoke softly. Because I didn't want her grief around every corner. I thought I was helping you both move on. I thought... She paused, lips trembling just slightly. I thought you needed a fresh start. I shook my head, tears cutting through my rage. You thought for me. You decided for me. Dad sighed heavily. I never realized how much her things mattered to you. I saw them as painful reminders. I thought I was protecting you from sadness. What about her letter? I said. You left it sealed for years. Why open it now? Why hide it? Dad glanced down. I didn't open it. Elise raised an eyebrow, but stayed quiet. I don't know who did. Maybe you opened it the day you came home crying after your birthday party last year. My skin burned. I hadn't. I told myself firmly, I hadn't touched it. Elise stared at the floor. I don't know who opened it, but someone did. And whoever opened it must have copied some of the information. You know how messy overseas inheritance paperwork is. I rediscovered those documents when I was organizing Dad's desk. I thought that if we moved the paperwork under the trust, under a shell company, it would be cleaner, safer, for you. For me? I looked from Dad to Elise, hatred and heartbreak tangled in me. You don't get to decide what's better for me. Silence fell. I felt sick. Then I realized something. You said someone else opened the letter. There's only one person who could have done that, on the night I came home shaking after someone knocked on the door. That night when I thought Dad was away. You were home then, Elise. Alone. Both of them froze. Dad's face whitened. Elise rubbed roughly at her palms. Air thickened between us. That night, I said, voice low, you buried my mom's keepsakes in the backyard. I found some dirt on your shoes the next morning. I remembered. I had dismissed it then. I remember now. You didn't want me to find the locket she wore, the one with her handwriting inside. Elise's lips parted for a moment, but no sound came. Dad's gaze shifted to the floor. You buried her? I whispered. My breath caught. I felt sick with betrayal. Dad shook his head, but his voice cracked. No, I helped. You two thought you were helping me cope. I didn't want you guilted into staying. Helping you cope? By erasing her? I spat. Elise looked at me with watery eyes. I'm sorry, Mia. I thought it was kindness. You thought wrong. Rage rose in me again, but under it, grief snapped open. The wound reopened. I staggered, feeling suddenly heavy, like someone had pressed down on my chest. You erased her. You erased her presence, her memory. Dad's shoulders slumped. He rubbed his face. I'm sorry, he muttered. I was broken. I trusted you, Elise. I thought you were helping me help her. Helping you disown her, I said. Helping you forget. Elise looked away. I didn't think you'd react like this. My tears came fast now. Because you didn't see me, motherless girl with her mother's photos gone. My voice shook. I saw you, Dad. I saw you for the man who let it happen. And I saw you, Elise, for the woman who thought she could rewrite my history. Dad finally looked up, all softness gone from his eyes. You're right. I don't blame you if you want to leave. I don't blame you if you want to cut us out. I don't deserve better. The room shifted. The air cooled. It felt like the house exhaled with me. I stood, clutching the folder, trembling. I realized then I had a choice. I looked at Elise. You'll have to tell them all. Lawyers, judge, people who can fix this. You'll have to restore what you erased. Give me back her photos, her things, her memory, and sign over any claim you had. Or I'll make it public. I'll show these documents to everyone. She nodded slowly, pale and rigid. Dad didn't argue. I didn't wait. I turned and walked out, backpack heavy, feet light with release. In the days that followed, I filed a police report. I hired an attorney, my own. I started digging deeper into Mom's past, into bank statements, overseas investments, tax filings. With Dad's quiet cooperation, reluctant but present, I unearthed a web of shell corporations, hidden properties, and offshore accounts. My mother had anticipated something like this years ago. She'd left detailed instructions. Restore everything to me, legally protect me, but hold it until I was of age, only if I needed it. She didn't want me to grow up dependent on sudden wealth. She wanted me to build my life with my own hands, memory intact. Elise's plan had been more than guardianship. She intended to take control of that trust when I turned 18, steering the wealth, dictating my future, maybe even deciding where I lived. The trust agreement included clauses for protection, maintenance, allocation to trustee as deemed fit, under vague legalese. In short, absolute control. I couldn't let that happen. The attorney advised I get Dad's full cooperation. Signed statements, rescind the trust, restore full ownership of assets to me. Dad was visibly shaken through the entire process. He avoided my eyes sometimes. He held my hand once, apologized. "I messed up," he said quietly. "I'm trying to fix it." The hardest part was resurrecting my mother's memory in the house. Elise cooperated, hesitantly. Under legal pressure, she retrieved a box she'd hidden in her car trunk. Old photo albums, the cookbook, handwritten recipes, my mother's necklace, and the locket I remembered. Each item felt heavy with sorrow and guilt. When I touched the locket, I trembled. Inside was a tiny faded photograph, my mom's smiling face, and beneath, a fragment of her handwriting. "For Mia, my sunshine." I ran my thumb over the delicate script until it blurred with tears. We demanded the official revision of the trust, a revocation, returning all assets and legal rights strictly to me, effective immediately. Dad signed. Elise refused. She didn't contest. That silence said more than words. Within 2 weeks, everything changed. Banks froze the shell company accounts. Properties placed under that name were transferred back to my name. The living trust was dissolved. A legal declaration acknowledged the wrongs done: unauthorized guardianship, concealment, emotional abuse. It wouldn't erase years, but it acknowledged them. It was a start. Politely but firmly, I told Dad I needed time away from the house. He offered counseling, he offered apologies, he offered empty words I couldn't take back. So I packed a bag, just clothes and the restored keepsakes, and moved in with Sarah. Living with Sarah felt like breathing fresh air after suffocating in a locked room. Her family welcomed me. She didn't smother me with pity. She let me cry when I needed, scream when rage bubbled, and sit in silence when I had no words. I found I could sleep again without nightmares. I could look at the sunrise and feel that maybe one day I would wake up calm. The locket stayed on my dresser. Some nights I rubbed it until sleep came. The old cookbook replaced the empty shelf in my room at Sarah's house. I read Mom's recipes aloud like stories: spaghetti on Tuesdays, apple pie on Fridays, each smell, each taste a way to remember. I enrolled at community college. I held a job at a small cafe downtown. With my own money, I started saving, not because I needed the wealth, but because I wanted independence. I wanted something in my name. Sometimes I saw Dad's car parked outside the house I grew up in, now quiet and empty. I wondered if Elise still lived there. The lawyer said she might lose the house. Title transfer part of the legal settlement. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't care. I wanted the past contained, not erased, but acknowledged. Months passed. One evening, Dad showed up at Sarah's doorstep. I froze when I saw him, stacking 2 coffee cups in his hand. He held out one to me, hesitated. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I came to ask if we could talk, if you'd let me say more." I took the cup. It was warm. I stared at him, angry and sad and exhausted. "Don't," I said. "Not now." He nodded. "I understand." He turned to leave, then paused. "But I want you to know. I'm trying to do better. Not for her. For you." I watched him walk away. The door closed behind him. The sound echoed. I sat down on the step outside. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. About a year later, I received a letter. Simple, typed. Notice that all claims on the estate of Waikau Asai, my mother, have been transferred solely to Mia Carter, effective date. Signed by all parties. It cost Mom nothing. It cost me grief, but also regained me my history. I held that letter like a medal. I put it next to the locket. I took one look at my childhood bedroom, empty shelves, bare walls, and closed the door behind me for the last time. I started to rebuild a home of my own. Small apartment, thrift store furniture, plants in the windows. On one wall, I hung a photograph of my mother. It was one of the recovered prints, from Mom's best friend's collection. I placed the locket on my nightstand. I cooked from her recipes. I kept some memories alive. I thought about forgiveness. If I could ever forgive Dad, forgive myself for trusting him. Some days I felt I might. Some days I didn't. But I could no longer live in the house where grief was twisted for convenience. I didn't stay angry for long. I stayed lonely for a while. I stayed wary. But I began feeling safe again. I began to feel like I was building something real. Now I often sit by the window of my small apartment, the locket resting against my palm, fragrance of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. I think of my mom, of her laughter, her warmth, her gentle voice reading me bedtime stories. I think of the way the world felt when she was alive. Soft, forgiving, full of familiar scents and safe corners. I also think of Elise, of her step-by-step erasure of everything I lost. And Dad, the man who loved us, but lost his way in grief. I don't hate him anymore. I don't love him the way I did as a child. I love him as someone who made a mistake, who trusted the wrong person, who almost lost me to an illusion of care. I learned that love isn't just about warm smiles and good intentions. Sometimes love is loud, and messy, and hurting. But sometimes love, real love, comes after the pain, when you choose truth over comfort, memory over forgetfulness, self over fear. I'm rebuilding, not just my life, but my history, my roots, my identity. I'm giving myself the home I deserve, one where loss doesn't mean erasure, but remembrance. One where my mother's voice lives in my cooking, my memories, my day-to-day. One where I have agency. And I'm healing.